Over the years, I've heard people make comments about, boy, this person has so much money that they don't have to worry about some of the things that we have to worry about as average people. They've just got so much and they've made so much in their careers. They just don't have the same worries. And that's just so false. I don't know how else to say it. That is just not true. Um, the principles remain the same regardless of how many zeros are behind your salary or how many zeros are behind your net worth. The principles remain the same. I want to see if I can pull up an article here that I saw in the Cincinnati Herald. And you will probably recognize this gentleman right here as Jim Carey. And this article is about Jim Carrey as well as other celebrities who, quite frankly, are having to go back to work acting not because they want to, but because they need the money. You may not be aware that a couple of years ago, Jim Carrey announced that he was retiring and he'd had enough and he just wanted to hang him up and just do what he wanted to do. If there was a movie role that came out that he just felt was just too amazing to give up to not take, he might come out of retirement. His option. Well, according to this article, he's coming out, and it's not because he's taking an option, it's because he needs the money. And if you remember, Jim Carrey at times demanded 20 to $25 million per film in his heyday. Made a ton of money, made a lot of films. But this article, and again, he just openly says, I bought a lot of stuff and yeah, I need the money. He's actually been trying to sell a house for several years now, but he wants too much money for it. He's trying to make a really great profit, probably because he's in financial trouble. Um, this is amazing to me, but then again, it's not really amazing to me. Sometimes when I have conversations with people and they make those comments like I mentioned earlier, that after you get to a certain point, you don't have to worry about that stuff. That is absolutely not true. Jim Carrey had a very successful career. He's now, I think he's 62 years old. Probably doesn't feel like working, and but he has to go back to work because apparently he didn't make the adjustments he needed to make, and maybe he didn't invest. Apparently, he didn't invest his money the way he probably should have while he was making that great money. Man, there's so many lessons here for you and me. So many lessons. While he was making an unbelievable amount of money, he didn't take advantage of that and apparently just spent as if that money was going to continue coming in for the rest of his life. It's not true for him, and it's not true for you or me. And you already know one of my favorite topics is making preparations for the day where either I can't work or I just may never no longer want to work. And those principles apply. The principles that apply to me apply to people who make 20 million, 30 million, $50 million. If they're making $50 million a year and spending $50 million a year, they're no better off than I am. That may be hard to swallow, but it's mathematically correct. If you make $50 million a year and you spend $50 million a year, you are no better off than I am. And I can promise you, I don't make $50 million a year, nowhere near it. So I think this is just very educational for me first. But I thought this might be something that would interest you, and maybe affect the way you think a little bit about your own preparation, um, your own financial well being. your own financial decisions. Jim Carrey, at one time making $20 million per film, and not unusual to make more than one film in a year, has to go back to work. Now, just think about if you or I um, get to that point where we say we're done, or we'd like to be done, we're finished, we want to go do something else, and you've made no preparation, you've made no decisions that will put yourself in in a better situation. And I will tell you, that's exactly what happened to me. I started to get a little long in the tooth, started to really think about how many more years I would work, and gave some serious thought to what I was doing with my money. And if I would have continued in the way I was going, more than likely, I would have had to work a really long time. Thank God I started to see the light, and quite frankly, started to educate myself. And as I educated myself and attained better ideas, better thinking, I started to make better decisions. That's the way it works. You get better information and you apply it. And then the third component is that D word that nobody likes. Nobody likes to hear anybody talk about, oh, you got to be more disciplined. Nobody wants to hear that. But it is absolutely necessary. We can afford anything, we just can't afford everything. And sometimes I think people really think they should be able to afford everything, and they will even make comments about, um, "I deserve this. I've done this and done this. I deserve this." Well, okay, all right. Um, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. We all have to make our decisions. But I just, at one point in my life, I just realized that I don't have unlimited time. Um, I have a limited amount of time to work and to do the things to have income. I better think wisely about how I'm using that income that God has blessed me to earn. And that's what I did. And that's really what this channel is about, and how a lot of conversations I've had with various people is I had one guy tell me, he said, "Man, I've never had anybody to, never been around anybody who thought like that." I'm like, there are people who think like that. It's just that when you look at the masses, I always talk about the masses. When you look at the masses, you may not be able to see it, because the masses, the majority, are just floating downstream and going wherever the stream takes them. But in order to make some real progress, first of all, you have to get different information. You have to be willing to make decisions based on that newer and better information. I've said a long time, I have no interest have no interest in being like the masses, none whatsoever, because on a large scale, the masses have spent their way into a bad situation. And it doesn't matter what the income level is. Look at Jim Carrey here that we're talking about. It doesn't matter how much you make, doesn't matter how big the house is, doesn't matter how the car looks, how amazing it is, and how people gawk at it. I have learned that that does not mean that that person is really doing well financially. It may mean they have good income. It doesn't mean that their financial picture is complete, because you only see what you see when they're out and about. And every now and then something will happen that will give you a glimpse, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this person is actually not doing as well as I thought they were. Not that we're just trying to look and see what everybody's doing, but you just have to know that everybody who looks like they're blessed are not doing as well as they may appear. Let's leave it like that. So I just thought this was a very interesting article. There are other celebrities that are doing the same thing. I think Al Pacino has had to go back to work because apparently he had some financial issues. All the money these people have made, all the money they've made, they have to go back to work. And my mind goes to people who, regular average people who want to retire or some cases do retire. And then they realize that I can't live like I want to live. You can go on TikTok or what any other social media and see these married couples who are of retirement age who are now having to go back and try to reapply for jobs because their plan was insufficient and they didn't give a whole lot of thought to retiring. But they did wake up one day and say, "Hey, I want to retire," not realizing what their expenses were, what income they were going to have, what were their fixed income sources like Social Security or if they had a pension, and not the least is what their own nest egg was, what they saved in their 401k or their IRAs or their um, taxable brokerage accounts or whatever the case may be. There's tons of people like that who are just like Jim Carrey. We just don't know their names. So I just want to share this kind of stuff with people because I really want people to start to at least think about it, to really put some serious thought into what they're doing. And if they want to keep doing what they're doing, if what they're doing is working, that's fine. There are many ways to be successful. My way is not the way, but I do think in order to be successful, you have to um, really put some serious thought into it. And again, the uncomfortable part can be taking a real hard look at where your money is going and that B word, the budget word that nobody likes to talk about. At least do some kind of spending plan so that you know where your money is going. That's the start. That's the very beginning. I'm not even talking about paying off huge amounts of debt. Not even talking about starting to um, save and invest for the future. I'm not even talking about that. Just getting an idea of where your money is going is the beginning, and from there you take steps to make your financial picture just a little bit brighter. Baby steps, and I wasn't even thinking about Dave Ramsey when I said baby steps, but taking small steps to get to where you want to get. Um, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. This was fun for me. Very interesting article. It's the kind of stuff I really like. I guess you call myself a personal finance enthusiast. I read a lot, read books and a lot, just get various ideas on what other people are doing. And it's really very interesting. Like I said, there's several ways to do it, but there's some key things and basic principles that don't change regardless of who you are. And you certainly cannot spend your way into any form of wealth or financial improvement. You have to take into account what you're spending and what you're making. And if you subtract what you're spending from what you're making and there's nothing left, that's a good indication that something's wrong. But when you have a margin there, when you have a gap between what you're making, what you're bringing home, and what you're spending, that difference is what we can utilize to start to really grow your own wealth, whatever that looks like for you. All right, guys, this has been fun. Hope to see you soon. Be blessed.